Hey there, superstar. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to stop being a victim and become a victor in your life. First, I'm going to get into why this work matters so much, really more than almost any other work you can do to build and grow your business and have an improved life. Then I'm going to dive into the distinction between victim and victor, as well as one overarching paradigm shift that everything relates to in this video. And then finally, I'm going to dive into the steps in order to change your way of being from victim to victor. And these steps, you can do them over and over again. In fact, you're going to have to do them over and over again every time you run into a situation where you find yourself playing the victim. Let's go. So let's start by talking about why this stuff even matters. Why does it matter if you're a victim or a victor? Well, I think it's kind of obvious, but I do think that there's something we need to address here. That we live in a culture where being a victim many times is celebrated, where it's something that a lot of us learn that we can get attention from becoming a victim, that we can get things given to us, handed to us when we play the victim. And I feel like we live in a culture where being a victim is often rewarded. The problem is that ultimately it's not very rewarding to be a victim in our lives. When we come to the end of our lives, we might find that we got by, that we got things given to us, but we may not have achieved or stepped into our fullest potential and greatness. I like to say that being a victim can help us be innocent, but it also makes us impotent. It can be something where it's not my fault that this thing happened to me. Look, these things happen to me, right? I didn't create them. I didn't ask for them. I didn't make them happen. But that attitude, you can even feel the energy of those statements. It's very disempowering. And so the paradigm shift I want to invite you to is one that might seem really counterintuitive and that I've found sometimes can even be triggering for people, which is this concept of radical responsibility. And what I mean by radical responsibility, it is someone who is playing life from a vision rather than from circumstance. What does that mean? When we live from circumstance, we are always at the mercy of what's going on around us. Let me use a really, really simple and obvious example. Somebody who, you may have had somebody in your life, you may be this person, but you had the experience of someone who is always chronically late, right? And they always have an excuse. So somebody, every day they get to work and they're like, oh, today, my tire got flat, or there was rain and the traffic was really bad. Obviously those things happen once or twice, but when they become a pattern and the person is always talking about the circumstances, then that person is operating from circumstance. They're at the mercy of the traffic, the tire, the line at McDonald's, or whatever it might be. When someone is operating from vision, or when they are operating in a radically responsible and empowered way, they might be late one time due to the circumstance, but then they take matters into their own hands and they might say, well, you know what? I don't want to be late ever again, so I'm going to leave my house 20 minutes early every day, or I'm going to check the Waze app when I wake up in the morning, see how the traffic is, or whatever empowered thing that they might do so that the circumstances don't have as much impact or influence, right? So that's an example of taking radical responsibility, of saying, all right, I own this. I own that I've been late or that I was late, and I'm going to put a new structure in place so that I can create a different outcome, so that I can create a different vision, a different reality. Now, before I keep going with this video, I do want to take this opportunity to pause and invite you to subscribe to my channel, like this video, maybe even share some of your thoughts below. So how do you do this? What are the, let's call them steps that you would go through in order to go from being a victim to victor? Well, obviously, the first and foremost, and without which none of this can happen, is you've got to acknowledge the areas of your life in which you are playing the victim. This can be really confronting. This can be really challenging. And here's what I invite you to do in order to find these areas. You might be thinking, well, I don't really know an area where I'm being a victim. I don't think I am being a victim in any place. Well, here's how you can identify somewhere that you are. Wherever you have a persistent complaint, or wherever others have a persistent complaint with you. The first one might be easier. The second one's a little more confronting. So the first one is, where do you have a persistent complaint? So look at an area of your life that you're not happy with and that you haven't been happy with for a while. So it might be in the area of money. If you feel like you're not making enough money, or your business isn't growing fast enough, or wherever your persistent complaint is, I want to invite you to look at that area and look at why you don't have what you want, right? So go ahead and just write down all the reasons that you don't have what you want. You might say, well, my clients are really cheap and they don't want to pay top dollar, or my clients are paying me late, or they're not paying me at all, or whatever the reasons why you are having this issue, what you think is the problem. Once you go ahead and write down all the things that you think are the problem, and I mean like all of them. So I would look for 10, 15, 20 ways or 20 whys or reasons that you think you're having this problem. Now go back to that list and one by one look at, is this something that you have any influence at all over? So let's take that first one. If you think it's because your clients are cheap and not willing to pay, do you have influence on that? Well, you might say, well, no, that's them, not me. But let me ask you this. Don't you have influence over what clients you work with? Well, if you think that you don't, then there's an area of your life, again, where you're outsourcing responsibility. So I want you to look at each and every one of these and say, are you outsourcing responsibility to the circumstance versus taking responsibility for yourself? Are you operating from circumstance or from vision in this area? If it's circumstance, well, I can't pick my clients, well then, can you pick being in business at all? Could you go get another job? Could you do something completely different? There's always another level of responsibility that you can take. And so I invite you to look at each and every one of these things and identify what is your responsibility. Now, once you've identified the areas of complaint or the whys that are the reasons, and you've looked at each and every one and say, how can I take my power back in this area? How can I take my power back in this area? How can I take my power back in this area? So then going through each and every one and identifying a claim that you can make. So for example, you can say, from now on, I'm going to work with clients who value my time and who value the work that I do for them. Or from now on, I will no longer take any clients that don't pay me up front, right? So you can create a list of claims for each of these areas. And what you will find is a lot of times there's certain structures that you can put in place to take your power back, like new agreements with clients, new guidelines, new rules. For example, if clients are always paying you late, a structure that you could put into place is a late fee. Right? So there are lots of different ways that you can start to manage these areas, but you want to look through each one and say, am I delegating my responsibility outside of myself? How can I take my power back? And then what is the structure that I can put into place to actually implement to take my power back? And then the last thing you might want to do is get some accountability. There is nothing like having a mentor or a coach supporting you with this work, checking in with you, asking you, did you do the thing? Did you put the new policy in place? And asking you the deep and difficult questions. I highly encourage you, if you got value from this and you want to work with someone like me who can help you grow and build your business with these principles, go to my website and go to superstaractivator.com/go and see if it might make sense for you and me to hop on a discovery call. I look forward to connecting with you.